Picture this. A Roman scout named Marcus crouches behind a fallen oak tree, his leather armor soaked with dew and blood. Around him, the Danube frontier burns. Smoke rises from what was once the prosperous city of Marcianopolis. The screams of the dying echo across waters that have run red for 3 days straight. But Marcus isn't watching ordinary raiders. These aren't the familiar Germanic tribes Rome has fought for centuries. These are the Goths, tall, fierce warriors with hair like spun gold and eyes like winter ice. They carry weapons that gleam with unknown metals, speak in tongues that sound like thunder, and fight with a desperation that chills even veteran legionaries. What Marcus doesn't know, as he watches Gothic longships beach on Roman shores, is that he's witnessing the beginning of the end. The year is 238 CE, and the Gothic Wars, 3 centuries of conflict that will reshape the face of Europe, have just begun. Tonight, we journey through the most epic struggle in ancient history. Not the quick conquest of Alexander or the calculated campaigns of Caesar, but grinding, generation-spanning conflict between 2 worlds, the dying light of classical civilization and the rising dawn of medieval Europe. This is a story of how barbarian became king, how Roman became relic, and how from the ashes of the greatest empire ever known, a new Europe was born. Close your eyes and let me take you back to when the Gothic longships first appeared on the Black Sea horizon, their dragon prows cutting through waters that had known only Roman peace for centuries. Back to when the thunder of hoofbeats announced not just another barbarian raid, but the march of destiny itself. The funeral pyre blazes against the Baltic night as old King Berig's body is consumed by flames that dance like living spirits. Around the fire, Gothic warriors beat their shields and chant the ancient songs, their voices carrying across the pine forests of what will one day be called Sweden. But tonight isn't just about honoring the dead. It's about choosing the living who will lead the Goths into their greatest adventure. The land grows cold, declares Philomer, Berig's eldest son, his breath visible in the frigid air. The ice creeps south each winter. The reindeer grow fewer. Our people multiply, but our hunting grounds shrink. We must find new lands or watch our children starve. The year is 238 CE, and the Gothic migration that will change European history forever is about to begin. But these aren't desperate refugees fleeing disaster. They are proud, sophisticated people making a calculated decision to seek their fortune in the rich lands of South. The Goths emerging from Scandinavia represent something unprecedented in the barbarian world. Where other Germanic tribes are scattered collections of villages, the Goths have developed a complex political structure with hereditary kings, professional warriors, and elaborate legal codes. They've mastered shipbuilding techniques that allow them to navigate both rivers and open seas. Most remarkably, they've developed a primitive form of writing, Gothic runes, that allows them to preserve their laws and legends across generations. Picture the Gothic migration fleet as it pushes south through the Baltic in 240 CE. These aren't crude dugout canoes, but sophisticated longships capable of carrying entire families with their livestock and possessions. The lead ship bears Philomer himself, now king of all the Goths, his golden torque gleaming in the northern sun as he scans the horizon for the new homeland his shamans have promised. Beyond the great forest, the old wise woman had prophesied, lies a land of warm rivers and fertile plains. There, the Goths will build kingdoms that endure until world's end. The Gothic host, perhaps 80,000 strong, follows the Vistula River south through the vast European plain. Unlike the chaotic barbarian invasions Romans expect, this is an organized migration led by kings and guided by carefully maintained oral traditions about geography and weather patterns. Gothic scouts range far ahead. Gothic rear guards protect the column from raiders, and Gothic shamans perform rituals at river crossings to ensure divine protection. As they move south, the Goths encounter and either absorb or destroy dozens of smaller tribes. The Vandals, the Gepids, the Heruli, all either join the Gothic Confederation or flee before their advance. What emerges isn't just a migration, but the formation of the largest barbarian coalition Europe has ever seen. The first Romans to encounter this Gothic host are frontier merchants trading amber and furs along the Vistula. What they report back to their commanders defies belief. Not scattered war bands, but an entire civilization on the move, complete with smiths, craftsmen, priests, and what appears to be a functioning government. They're not like other barbarians, reports emerging Gaius Valerius to the legate of the Seven Claudia Legion. They have laws, written laws carved in wood. They have kings who rule by more than strength alone. And their weapons. He pauses, remembering the Gothic spears with their intricate iron points. Their weapons are better than ours. By 245 CE, the Gothic migration reaches the shores of the Black Sea. Here, in the rich grasslands of what is now Ukraine, they encounter the remnants of the Sarmatian kingdom, Iranian-speaking horsemen who have dominated the steppes for centuries. The resulting collision produces something entirely new, a Gothic confederation that combines Germanic infantry tactics with Sarmatian cavalry techniques. King Philomer establishes his capital at a place the Goths call Arhemer, the honor home, near modern Crimea. But this isn't a crude barbarian settlement. Archaeological evidence suggests a sophisticated urban center with specialized quarters for craftsmen, elaborate burials for nobles, and what may have been the first Gothic temple dedicated to their war god, Tawaz. Here, Philomer declares as he plants a spear in the black earth, the Goths make their stand. Let Rome tremble, for the wolves of the north have found their hunting ground. But the Goths don't immediately attack Roman territory. Instead, they spend several years consolidating their position, learning about their new environment, and most importantly, studying their Roman neighbors. Gothic traders appear in Roman markets along the Danube. Gothic craftsmen copy Roman techniques, and Gothic nobles even send their sons to study in Roman schools. This period of apparent peace lulls the Romans into complacency. The Emperor Gordian III is more concerned with Persian threats in the east than barbarian movements in the north. Roman commanders assume the Goths will follow the familiar pattern of previous barbarian migrations, settle down, become peaceful, and eventually seek Roman alliance. They couldn't be more wrong. The Gothic learning period is actually preparation for war. While Gothic merchants study Roman trade routes, Gothic warriors map Roman fortifications. While Gothic craftsmen learn Roman metallurgy, Gothic shamans prepare their people spiritually for the greatest battle in their history. And while Gothic nobles study Roman law, Gothic kings plan the destruction of Roman power along the entire Danube frontier. But Niva is playing a deeper game. His apparent retreat is actually a strategic withdrawal designed to lure Roman forces into a carefully prepared trap. While Decius celebrates his victory, Gothic reinforcements pour south from the Black Sea homeland. By summer of 251 CE, Niva commands not one Gothic army, but three, positioned to converge on any Roman force foolish enough to pursue them. The trap springs at a place called Abritus, a swampy region in northeastern Bulgaria that Romans consider strategically worthless. Decius, pursuing what he believes is a retreating Gothic band, finds himself surrounded by the entire Gothic confederation. His 40,000-man army faces twice that number of Gothic warriors fighting on ground of their choosing. The Battle of Abritus unfolds like a Gothic saga made real. Decius forms his legions in the traditional Roman formation, heavy infantry in the center, cavalry on the wings, archers behind. But Gothic tactics have evolved beyond simple barbarian charges. Niva holds his infantry in reserve while launching his cavalry in waves against Roman flanks, each attack designed to weaken rather than break Roman lines. "Steady, lads," shouts a Roman centurion as Gothic horsemen thunder past, arrows whistling overhead. "They're just barbarians. Remember your training." But these aren't just barbarians. Gothic archers use composite bows superior to Roman weapons. Gothic cavalry employs stirrups that give them stability unknown to Roman horsemen. Gothic infantry fights with two-handed axes that can shatter Roman shields and armor. Most importantly, Gothic warriors fight with desperate courage born of the knowledge that defeat means not just death, but the end of Gothic dreams of freedom. The battle rages for hours under the summer sun. Roman discipline holds against Gothic fury. Veteran legionaries stand firm as wave after wave of Gothic warriors break against their shield walls. For a moment, it seems Roman military supremacy will triumph once again. Then young Prince Herennius falls, struck down by a Gothic arrow as he rallies a wavering cohort. Emperor Decius, seeing his son die, abandons tactical command and charges into the Gothic lines with his personal guard. It's a moment of human tragedy that becomes strategic disaster. The emperor, Gothic warriors cry as they recognize the purple cloak among the Roman dead. We have killed their king. Decius's death doesn't end the battle. It transforms it. Roman units, leaderless and demoralized, begin to break. What starts as tactical withdrawal becomes panic rout. By nightfall, the flower of the Roman army lies dead in the swamps of Abritus, and Niva stands victorious over the first Roman emperor killed in battle by barbarians in over 6 centuries. The psychological impact across the empire is devastating. From Britain to Syria, Roman citizens ask the same terrifying question. If barbarians can kill emperors, what safety remains for anyone? Religious fanatics proclaim the end of the world. Ambitious generals march on Rome, claiming they can succeed where Decius failed. The economy collapses as trade routes become too dangerous to use. But for the Goths, victory at Abritus is only the beginning. Niva's success attracts every discontented barbarian tribe in Eastern Europe. Vandals, Gepids, Heruli. Even distant Saxons send warriors to join the Gothic Confederation. What began as tribal migration becomes barbarian revolution. More ominously, Niva's victory inspires Gothic innovation. If land-based raids can kill emperors, what might sea-based invasions accomplish? By 253 CE, Gothic shipwrights are building fleets on the Black Sea, preparing for naval campaigns that will carry Gothic warriors to the very heart of the classical world. The Roman Empire, master of the Mediterranean for 7 centuries, is about to discover that the sea it calls our lake has become a highway for its enemies. The Byzantine merchant captain squints through the morning haze, trying to identify the dark shapes on the horizon. His ship, laden with silk from Constantinople and spices from Alexandria, rides low in the water as it approaches the Bosphorus. But those aren't Roman galleys waiting to escort him home. There's something far more sinister. Gothic dragons, whispers his helmsman, using the sailor's name for the fearsome longships that have terrorized the Black Sea for 3 years. May the gods preserve us. As the Gothic fleet emerges from the mist, the merchant sees something that chills his blood more than enemy warriors or burning ships. Gothic vessels flying Roman naval standards, commanded by men who understand both Gothic fury and Roman tactics. These aren't barbarians learning to sail. They're becoming masters of the sea itself. The year is 256 CE, and the Gothic naval revolution is reaching its terrifying peak. The transformation begins in the aftermath of Abritus. King Niva, flushed with victory but wise enough to understand that Roman revenge is inevitable, realizes that Gothic survival depends on strategic mobility. Land armies can be cornered and destroyed, but naval forces can strike anywhere and retreat to safety beyond Roman reach. The challenge is formidable. The Goths are forest people, uncomfortable on water, lacking shipbuilding traditions. But they possess something more valuable than maritime experience. They have Roman prisoners, including naval officers who know Mediterranean sailing conditions, coastal defenses, and most critically, the seasonal wind patterns that make long-distance voyages possible. Picture the scene at the Gothic port of Tyrus around 254 CE. Roman naval architects, working under Gothic supervision, design hybrid vessels that combine Gothic seaworthiness with Roman speed. These aren't crude barbarian boats, but sophisticated warships capable of both river navigation and open-sea voyages. Gothic smiths forge new anchor designs. Gothic carpenters master techniques for waterproofing hulls. Most importantly, Gothic navigators learn to read stars and currents with skills that rival their Roman teachers. The sea calls to free men, declares Cannibaud, the Gothic admiral who will lead the first great naval expedition. Romans think water surrounds their empire like a protective moat. We will show them it's a highway to their destruction. But the Gothic maritime learning curve involves more than shipbuilding. Gothic warriors must master an entirely new form of combat. Fighting on a ship's deck requires different weapons, different tactics, different mental preparation than forest warfare. Gothic berserkers, accustomed to charging across solid ground, must learn to maintain balance on rolling seas. Gothic archers must compensate for wind and wave motion. The first Gothic naval raid targets Pityus, a Roman city on the eastern Black Sea coast. The expedition seems modest, perhaps 20 ships carrying 500 warriors, but its success demonstrates Gothic naval potential. Using techniques learned from captured Roman sailors, the Gothic fleet approaches at night, lands warriors on an undefended beach, and captures the city before dawn. More importantly, the Pitches raid proves that Gothic naval forces can operate far from their home bases. The captured city becomes a Gothic naval station, providing supplies, ship repairs, and intelligence for future operations. Within months, Gothic fleets are ranging across the entire Black Sea, establishing bases from Crimea to Anatolia. The Roman response reveals the empire's military decline. Instead of concentrating naval forces for decisive action, Roman commanders scatter their ships along hundreds of miles of coastline, creating a defensive cordon that Gothic raiders easily penetrate. Roman naval tactics, perfected against organized enemy fleets, prove ineffective against Gothic hit-and-run attacks. Emperor Gallienus, struggling with simultaneous rebellions in Gaul and Syria, can spare neither ships nor legion for Black Sea defense. His letters to eastern governors reveal growing desperation. Hold what you can. Abandon what you cannot. Preserve the cities that matter most. But which cities matter most? The Goths answer that question in 267 CE with the most audacious naval operation in ancient history. A massive fleet carrying 6,000 warriors through the Bosphorus into the Aegean Sea, targeting the cultural heart of the Greek world. The Gothic passage through the Dardanelles represents military genius combined with Roman incompetence. The narrow strait should be impregnable to any hostile fleet, but corruption, political infighting, and sheer negligence have left the crucial waterway virtually undefended. Gothic ships slip through under cover of darkness, emerging into the Aegean like wolves entering a sheepfold. Athens, the birthplace of democracy and philosophy, becomes the first target of Gothic fury. The city that produced Pericles and Plato, Socrates and Sophocles, faces destruction by warriors who see classical learning as Roman decadence. Yet the Gothic assault reveals unexpected complexity. Some Gothic leaders, educated in Roman schools, understand what they're destroying and take pride in it. Let them weep for their marble temples. Snarls Respa, a Gothic chieftain whose own father died in Roman slavery. We will build halls of wood and honest stone, where free men sing of honest deeds. The siege of Athens lasts 3 months and ends in Gothic victory. The Parthenon survives, but the city's famous libraries burn. Philosophical schools that have operated for centuries scatter. The Agora, where Socrates questioned truth and Demosthenes defended freedom, fills with Gothic campfires and the sound of alien languages. But the Gothic triumph in Athens is also their greatest mistake. The destruction of classical civilization's most sacred city finally galvanizes Roman resistance. Emperor Claudius II, the Gothicus, assembles the largest army of his reign and marches north determined to end the Gothic threat forever. Meanwhile, Gothic naval success breeds strategic overconfidence. Admiral Cannibaud divides his forces, sending fleets to raid Crete, Cyprus, and even the coast of Syria. Gothic warriors, laden with plunder and confident of victory, lose the discipline that made their early raids successful. The reckoning comes at Nisus in 269 CE. Claudius Gothicus, using tactics learned from Gothic victories, feigns retreat to lure the main Gothic army into a carefully prepared trap. Unlike previous Roman commanders, Claudius doesn't rely solely on traditional legionary tactics. He employs Germanic auxiliary troops who understand Gothic psychology, Celtic cavalry who match Gothic mobility, and most critically, he fights the kind of total war the Goths themselves introduced. The Battle of Nisus becomes Gothic Armageddon. 50,000 Gothic warriors die in a single day. King Cannibaud falls fighting in the front rank. The Gothic Confederation that terrorized the Roman world for 2 decades shatters like glass struck by a hammer. But even in defeat, the Goths achieve a Pyrrhic victory. Roman losses are so severe that Claudius cannot exploit his triumph. The empire that defeats the Gothic threat lacks the strength to restore the territories they ravaged. Cities remain abandoned. Trade routes stay closed, and the demographic catastrophe of the Gothic Wars accelerates Roman decline. More ominously, Gothic survivors don't disappear. They adapt. Some accept Roman offers of land and military service, becoming foederati who fight for the empire while maintaining Gothic identity. Others retreat to mountain strongholds and forest sanctuaries, preserving Gothic culture and waiting for their next opportunity. The most successful Gothic survivors become something entirely new: barbarian kingdoms that combine Gothic warrior traditions with Roman administrative techniques and Christian religious authority. In these hybrid states, the future of post-Roman Europe is being born. As Emperor Claudius Gothicus dies of plague in 270 CE, he believes he has saved the empire from barbarian destruction. He doesn't realize that the Gothic Wars have already achieved their ultimate objective: the transformation of Roman Europe into something that is neither purely Roman nor purely barbarian, but the synthesis that will become medieval civilization. The age of pure Roman dominance is ending. The age of Romano-Gothic synthesis is about to begin. The Gothic council fire crackles in the Carpathian wilderness as two brothers face each other across flames that cast dancing shadows on their weathered faces. One wears a Roman torque of a foederatus commander. The other bears the sacred axe of tribal kingship. Both are sons of the great king Cannibaud's, but they represent two different visions of Gothic destiny. "Brother," says Alaric, keeper of the old ways, his voice heavy with disappointment, "you wear Roman gold and speak Roman words. Have you forgotten the songs of our fathers? Have you forgotten why our people crossed the great water?" Fritigern adjusts the purple cloak that marks his status as a Roman ally, but his eyes reflect inner torment. "I have forgotten nothing, brother. But times change. Rome offers us land, law, and protection. Would you have our children starve for the sake of pride?" Today, the Pope declares as he places a crown on Charlemagne's head, the empire returns to the West, but it returns transformed, enriched, made new by the peoples who seem to destroy it. Charlemagne's empire isn't a restoration of classical Rome, but a fulfillment of possibilities created by the Gothic Wars. It combines Frankish military strength with Roman administrative efficiency and Christian moral authority. It preserves classical learning while encouraging vernacular literature. It maintains imperial ambitions while recognizing the reality of regional diversity. Most importantly, Charlemagne's coronation demonstrates that the Gothic Wars achieved their ultimate objective: not the destruction of Roman civilization, but its transformation into something capable of surviving and thriving in post-classical conditions. The Goths who crossed the Danube in the 3rd century seeking land and security created, through 3 centuries of warfare and synthesis, the foundations of medieval Europe. The monastery bells that call Brother Isidore to prayer also announce the dawn of a new age, an age when Gothic courage and Roman wisdom and Christian faith will combine to create the civilization we call medieval Christendom. The ancient world has died, but from its transformation emerges something unprecedented in human history: a continental civilization capable of preserving the best of the past while creating possibilities for an even greater future. The snow falls gently on the ruins of Toulouse as an old Frankish chronicler named Fredegar makes his final entry in the history he has spent a lifetime writing. Around him, the palace that once housed Visigothic kings now serves Frankish dukes, but the stones remember voices and languages that time has already begun to silence. "Thus end the wars of the Goths," he writes with trembling hand, "which began when our ancestors crossed the great waters seeking new lands, and ended when their great-grandsons found new kingdoms in the ruins of empire. Let those who come after remember, we were not destroyers but builders, not barbarians but the makers of a new world." He doesn't know that his words will prove prophetic. The Gothic names Theodoric, Alaric, Athanaric will echo through medieval literature as symbols of noble kingship. The Gothic achievements, law codes, architectural innovations, cultural synthesis, will inspire rulers from Alfred the Great to Otto the Great. The Gothic example, successful integration of diverse traditions into functional unity, will become the model for European civilization itself. But as Fredegar lays down his pen for final time, he hears something that would have seemed impossible 3 centuries earlier: children playing in the courtyard, singing songs that blend Latin words with Germanic melodies and Christian themes. They are neither Roman nor Gothic nor Frankish, but simply European, inheritors of traditions so thoroughly synthesized that their separate origins have become indistinguishable. "Listen," the old chronicler whispers to the falling snow, and you can still hear them, the Gothic voices that taught Europe to be itself. They sing in our laws and our legends, in our languages and our dreams of what kingdoms might become when courage serves wisdom and strength serves justice. The Gothic Wars are over, but their echo will resound until the world's end. In the cathedrals that rise where Gothic kings once held court, stone voices proclaim that barbarian hands can build beauty that rivals classical achievement. In the universities that emerge from monastery schools, scholarly voices demonstrate that Germanic minds can master learning that would have impressed Roman philosophers. In the parliaments that grow from tribal assemblies, democratic voices prove that barbarian governance can create freedoms unknown to imperial subjects. And in the quiet moments when Europe remembers its origins, Gothic voices still whisper the lesson they died to teach: that civilization belongs not to the strong or the wise or the pure, but to all peoples brave enough to transform themselves in the service of something greater than themselves. Sleep now, and dream of Gothic longships cutting through the dawn mist. Dream of Gothic warriors defending not just their own freedom, but the freedom of strangers. Dream of Gothic kings who learn that true strength serves justice, that real victory creates rather than destroys, and that the greatest conquest is a conquest of the human heart by truth and mercy. For in your dreams, the Gothic Wars continue, not as battles between peoples, but as the eternal struggle between the forces that divide and the forces that unite, between the pride that destroys and the humility that builds, between the fear that conquers and the love that liberates. The Goths are gone, but their greatest victory endures. The Europe they helped create, where different peoples can become one people, where ancient wisdom serves modern hope, and where the future grows from the past without being imprisoned by it. If this epic journey through 3 centuries of struggle and transformation has stirred your soul, moved your heart, or opened your mind to the complexity of human history, please like this video and subscribe for more stories from the depths of time. Share your thoughts in the comments. Which Gothic king inspired you most? Which moment of triumph or tragedy will you remember long after these words fade? Which lesson from the Gothic Wars speaks to your own life and times? Until we meet again in the realm of forgotten stories, remember, you carry within you the courage of Gothic warriors, the wisdom of Roman statesmen, and the faith of Christian saints. The Gothic Wars live in you, and through you, their legacy continues.